So welcome back to our Monday morning coaching corner with myself and Margaret Dennis from Evolve Coaching. And if you've listened and followed along with any of our previous videos, we've been talking about boundaries and how boundaries are incredibly important to set up in your life. And as I mentioned on our previous video, I was almost in my 30s before I even understood what boundaries were. So I'm going to say a good morning to Margaret. I'm very happy to have you back here.
Yes, it's very nice to be back. Thank you very much for having me, and good morning to you too.
Yeah, this is it's great to be able to have these conversations and talk about subjects that come up for both of us while we're coaching people, and that we've had everything that we coach people on, we've had come up in our lives in some form or another. And boundaries is key. Boundaries key for being able to protect your own energy. And one of the visuals I have for people, if you get yourself, and I don't know if this is a Canadian word, but it's a British word, a colander or a sieve, okay? I have to correct my British speak, but a colander or a sieve, and you pour everything in. So let's say you pour flour in, and everything where you haven't created an energetic boundary for yourself seeps through those holes. So if you use flour as the energy that you hold within yourself, and you pour a bag of flour through that colander because it has bigger holes, then all of your energy will seep through all of those places that you don't have a boundary set to be able to keep your energy safe. So if you use
100%.
the visual of a piece of duct tape over some of those holes, then you're able to set boundaries that protect you, but you don't completely cover the hole, but you cover it enough that you feel safe and secure. So how does that analogy work for you, Margaret?
It was a really great visual.
Yeah.
I could totally see it. I was like, colander. My dad is British, so I totally get the colander reference. But it's true. The more that your energy seeps out, the less that you have for yourself and for the other things that you want to put your energy towards. And so, yes, the duct tape is a really great analogy for setting up those boundaries. And it's a way of keeping yourself safe, and it's an amazing way to start your idea of self-care, because we are going into that for today, that boundaries are a really big part of how you can take care of yourself.
100%, 100%. So again, if we go back to a visual for somebody, if you have, I don't know, a barometer, let's say, that's from 0 to 10, 10 being your energy and your tank is completely and utterly full. You wake up in the morning and you've got a full tank in your energy barometer. And then you go through your day and you're at work and you somebody needs something from you, something that might be over and above what your regular job is. Then you might recognize that that energy tank starts to go down a little bit. Right? And then you have a friend or a work colleague or somebody that's got something going on in their life, and you sit and listen to them, and your energy tank comes down a little bit. And then you get stuck in traffic, or you have a family member that has something else going on and your energy level comes down a little bit. And then you get home and all the tasks that you gave your kids to do, or you asked your husband to do, or your partner to do, or something else isn't done. And after you've done a full day's work, you come through the door, and now we might have been at maybe 4.5. You walk through the door and everything's still piled up, and you go from 4.5 to a 2. And then you might sit at a 2 for the rest of the night. But when you've had a full night's sleep, when you wake up in the morning, you're only at a 9. Because you didn't do anything to fill yourself up or to create or reinforce that boundary that says, I asked you to do the dishes, I asked you to do this, I asked you to do that, because that takes, some of the, and I know, so one of the things that I used to say to myself when I would ask my kids to do something it didn't get done, I would be the proverbial martyr and go, fine, you just sit there, I'll just do it. And then I'd get ticked off. And then I would be angry inside of myself and frustrated inside of myself. And I would be clattering, slamming plates down or cups down or something, that making my presence known that I wasn't happy. But it wasn't until a lot later on that I recognized, or like I said, well into my 30s, where boundaries became a topic for me. How have you experienced that?
As you were explaining the doing the dishes and making a lot of noise, I've done that. I've totally done that too, where you get frustrated because you've asked someone to do something, they haven't done it, and then you come to a point where it's like, is it worth the fight? But it is, when you think about it, because you're trying to preserve some of your energy. You're trying to take care of you. And if you have to go and do the dishes when you have a perfectly good child or spouse who can help because you've already made the dinner, it's only good to share. If you have another family member or even a roommate who can help, then it does help to keep your energy, and it gives you the opportunity to go and do something that will, like, do you want to sit and read for 15 minutes? Do you want to go and take a bath? Would you like to sit and just, enjoy a glass of wine or go for a walk, or whatever it is that you need at that moment to increase your energy? Because the more you give in and just say, fine, I'll do it, you come to the end of the night, like you said, and you haven't had a chance to refill your cup before you go to bed. And it doesn't have to be something monumental, right? Self-care can be very, very simple. It could be as much as, I'm going to take 15 minutes just to read a book, or I'm going to go and meditate for 15 minutes, or I'm just going to go sit in the backyard and listen to the birds. Whatever it is that works for you, but you need to be able to set boundaries up to allow that time to happen. The other thing is that is good you could practice doing is that if you've asked someone to do it and they're refusing to do it, then you need to be strong enough to just walk away and leave it.
Yes.
That's been the hardest part for me, because especially when it comes to the kitchen, I don't like a dirty kitchen. I hate a dirty kitchen, and I hate getting up in the morning and having a dirty kitchen that I have to clean. It's a pet peeve of mine. It's something that I just don't like. And so in those instances, it's I think for me, it actually helps my energy for the next morning to know that it's not going to be done. It's not going to be there for me to do in the morning. But it's still taking away, and it means that you're not getting the support and the help in the house that you should
And I
get.
feel the same as you. The kitchen is a big thing for me too. And I've noticed that when there are dishes in the sink when I go to bed at night, if I am too tired or nobody else has done them, so that they're just sat there, when I wake up in the morning, I'm already going, oh, I've got to clear something up from the day before. And I'm not waking up with a clear slate. Now, when I wake up in the morning and the kitchen, all the dishes are done and put away, and I walk in and it's a clean slate. You start your day, it's a clean slate. And sometimes it means having those harder conversations with people, because one thing as women is we self-sacrifice. We
All the
believe
time.
that there's only us that can do it. If you've asked your husband to fill the dishwasher and he doesn't stack the dishwasher the same as you stack the dishwasher, and then you complain that he stacked the dishwasher that way, and you go in and rearrange all the dishes the way you would stack it, what would encourage somebody to want to stack the dishwasher?
100%.
So if they stack the
100%.
dishwasher back to front to the way you would stack it, the dishes are going to get washed. And whatever doesn't get washed, then afterwards you can say, oh, there's a really good way to stack the dishwasher because this dish and this dish came out dirty. So now it's not a complaint. Now it's something that, how about I show you how I stack it? Now, very often a partner might turn around and say, well, if you're so good at stacking the dishwasher, you do it. Because very often when we start to complain that we don't, I can hear my mum in my head right now, because she used to dust. So she'd dust everything first, then vacuum, And my dad used to drive my dad crazy because he said, first you vacuum and then you dust, because when you vacuum, you get the dust. And they could never agree. So in the end, my dad said, fine, you do it. So if there's only your way, then I'll do it your way. But if you're not prepared to have those conversations or allow somebody to do it differently from you that takes your burden, then you're always going to be carrying that burden and self-sacrificing.
Oh yeah, 100%. I was just thinking the same way. If you're looking for ways to set boundaries so that you can be able to dedicate some time for self-care, you have to be willing to give up some control over what it is you're asking someone else to do for you, or
100%.
to share in, not necessarily do for you, because it's not necessarily your task or your role, especially if we're talking about the dishes. But I mean, even if it's at work, right? And the colleague's asking you to do something additional, if you don't have time or you think it's too much, you need to be able to have that conversation and say, well, when do you need it done? Is it really urgent? Does it have to happen right now, today? And if so, is there someone else who might be able to do it? Now, you don't want to always do that. If it is your job, it's your job, and you try and figure that out. But being able to not be the person that everybody comes and dumps their little things on all the time, or it's so urgent, right? Like and then you end up staying late and they go home. Like,
Yeah.
I've seen that happen many times, many times. And again, that becomes our martyr side of us going, yes, I can do it. I can get it done. But I think it's true. We need to be able to, I think, first of all, if we're going to be setting the boundaries of self-care, is really figuring out what it is that we need first, right? You can't, it's, you don't want to be in the middle of something and say, well, I don't want to do the dishes anymore. Okay, well, maybe you don't. But what is really going to support you in being able to do the self-care? Because you want to try and work it out to be a win-win if you can,
Yeah.
as much as possible. So maybe it's with your partner. Look, you love to cook, I like to clean. How about you cook and I clean, and we work it out that way.
Yeah.
And then the nights that you're not home, then I'll just, I'll do takeout.
Yeah.
Something like that, right? And you can have those conversations, and especially when you're in a partnership living together, those boundaries are ongoing conversations, right? I know in our house, I do my laundry, my partner does his laundry, simply because I'm a little bit anal when it comes to laundry. I like things done a certain way. And as much as he'd be willing to throw in a load for me, I think I'd be more stressed out about how it's going to turn out at the other end if, if I let him do it. Right.
Yeah.
And so that's something that we've done. But for me, and I'm a weirdo, I love doing laundry, right? There's a beginning, a middle, and an end. And for me, I
Yeah.
enjoy that. But I also enjoy the time in between, because then I can go, oh, well, while it's on, I'm doing something. Now I can go and read for, half hour, 45 minutes while it's in the wash, or I can
Mhm.
go for a walk, or I can do other things. But really figuring out for yourself what fills up your cup and what drains it,
Mhm.
and being able to put boundaries
Yeah.
around those things that really drain your
100%. And when it comes to you mentioning the laundry, their conversations and choices,
energy.
you're choosing to do your laundry,
Hmm.
whereas if you were asking your partner to do your laundry and it wasn't done, or
Hmm.
that's where the frustration starts. So
Hmm.
it's also having those conversations. Well, if I do this, can you do that?
Hmm.
If I'm over here, can you be over there? And being able to create that. And boundaries are not something that's set in stone, and they're
Hmm.
certainly not about control.
No.
Boundaries are about self-care and keeping yourself safe, in a place of safety.
Hmm.
So when we talk about boundaries in relationships, we mentioned some areas last week. We have the
Hmm.
physical, we have the emotional, we have the sexual, and we have the intellectual boundaries. They're all things that perhaps somebody listening to this hadn't even considered before.
Hmm.
That there are areas in your life where we have these boundaries and these safeties. So if you come home,
Hmm.
if you sit at the end of your day and you are flat out on zero in your energetic tank, take a look at what you might be self-sacrificing or martyring yourself for.
Hmm.
Because some of the key things in that is being a people pleaser.
Mhm.
Okay. And when we are a people pleaser, we don't create boundaries.
Oh,
Because
no.
if we create a boundary, somebody's not going to like us. If we say
Mhm.
no, somebody's going to fall out with us. So
Mhm.
if you, even for the next few days, for the rest of this week, come home at night and ask, where's my energetic tank? Where did I let my energy seep out of the holes within my energy system? And where would be an appropriate place for me to start creating a boundary where it keeps my energy safe?
Mhm. Oh, 100%. Because if you're doing that day after day after day after day, it's no wonder you're exhausted and you have nothing left to give.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't want to be walking home at the end of your day from work and showing up at home and having zero capacity to be there as the best person that you can be.
Mm-hmm. And very often we do.
Mhm.
Very often
Yeah.
snappy. We don't know
Mhm.
why we're snappy. We feel exhausted. We feel underappreciated,
Mhm.
overused, not seen, not heard. But ultimately,
Mhm.
that comes down to what boundary did you create? And if you're a people pleaser, where can you reclaim back your energy and create a
Mhm.
safe boundary for you where you're not constantly giving away of your energy so that you're the one that's depleted and ends up with burnout
Mhm.
and feeling like everybody uses you and abuses you when
Mhm.
there was no boundary ever created at the beginning.
Mhm. 100%. And setting those boundaries if they haven't been set before is always a not always, but can quite often be the hardest talk that you'll have to start, right? But once you've had the initial conversation, having follow-up conversations won't be as difficult or shouldn't be as difficult,
Yeah.
right? Once you've started opening that door of communication around, these are some things that I need. This
Mm-hmm.
is, these are some boundaries that I would like to set that would help me. And in the same vein, you can ask your partner or ask the family, what boundaries do you need? Right. So maybe maybe I've known couples that it's like when they get home, they're like, I need half an hour just to not talk, not
Decompress.
see, not do, just decompress. Right. That's a boundary that they've set for themselves to as a form of self care. Right. And
Yeah.
when you have young children at home, it can be a little hard to do something like that. But maybe it's okay, I'll take them for the first half hour, you take them for the next half hour so we can trade off, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't always have to be all or nothing. It can always be what can we do to support one another so we both have our boundaries that we've set and we're both recharging our tanks,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, or
And
you have
so,
them one evening and
mhm,
I'll have them the next, and
mhm,
do it that way. But at first,
mhm,
in order to discover what you might feel that your boundaries are, ask yourself, what are my expectations of us?
mhm,
You know, what are my expectations? What's my expectation of myself? Are you expecting yourself to do 100% of the jobs 100% of the time?
mhm,
Because you're going to set yourself up for burnout. But if you
mhm,
sit there and have an expectation, or I would really like, maybe not an expectation, I would really like, which is really an expectation in
mhm,
disguise. I would really like X to do this so I can do this. I would really like Y to do this because this helps, you know, release me from some of the things that I am doing. And
mhm,
then teaching yourself, if you've been somebody that's constantly done it. This was something that I found difficult right away
mhm,
because I was the people pleaser, because I
mhm,
had zero boundaries. I just did for everybody. And then when I
mhm,
was feeling down and low and everything, it was woe is me, nobody's ever there for me, and I'm there for everybody else conversation in my head.
mhm,
It wasn't until I started to create boundaries that I had to reintroduce and remind myself on a regular basis, stop, that's now a boundary. It's not
mhm,
only a boundary for them to not come into, it's all also
mhm,
a boundary for me to not go past.
mhm. Mhm, and it takes some time because these are habits that you have formed over time, especially I was a people pleaser too, and I think there's probably still a little part of me in there that surfaces. You can't, I feel like you can't get rid of that part of yourself completely. I think there's always a part of you that surfaces, but you are more aware of it. But I was the same. I would do everything for everybody, and I would try and be everything for everybody.
Yeah.
And it's exhausting,
Yeah.
absolutely exhausting. And so I think the biggest boundary I ever learned was how to say no.
Yeah.
Like, being able to say no without worrying about, "Oh my god, they're gonna hate me, they're never gonna be my friend again." Because I got to the point where I'm like, if they're gonna hate me or not be my friend because I said no, then it's not worth it in the first place, right?
Exactly.
Like, any so, um, it's just, yeah, saying no is probably the best boundary you can do by learning to
Exactly.
say no.
Yeah.
And sometimes I loved how you had spoken in a previous episode too, how you'll say, "Well, can I get back to you on that? Let me think about that." So if you're really not 100% sure if this is going to be a boundary or not, give yourself some space to think about it, because new things come up all the time,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
I found saying, can I get back to you on that, was a soft no.
Mhm.
No is a hard no. No,
Mhm.
no, 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 no.
No.
No is a hard no. Can I
Mhm.
get back to you on that is a soft no until
Mhm.
I run it through my process to find out if I can do it. Can I take it on? Is my heart in it? Have I
Mhm.
overloaded my plate? You know, and I recognize for myself also by saying, can I get back to you on that? The people that had gotten used to me 100% showing up for them eventually started to figure out how to do it for themselves.
Mhm.
Because by the time I got back to them and said, okay, I can do it this time, but not this time, it was like, oh, don't worry, I've already done it.
Mhm.
So then again, you're claiming back some of your energy and some of your
Mhm.
power in being able to fill up your tank. If you don't fill your tank up, there's
Mhm.
nobody going to come along at the end of the night with a little pump and pour it into the top of your head and go, okay, well, fill your
No.
tank up while you sleep. We are the ones that are in control of either
Mhm.
depleting or filling up our own tank, and boundaries is
Mhm.
a key in being able to do that.
Mhm. I have a question for you.
Yeah.
When you said that you were saying to people, "Can I get back to you?" And then you get back to them and they're like, "No, no, it's okay. I figured it out." How did you feel in that moment? Did you feel like, "Oh, they can't do it without me," or "They can do it without me"? Was there a feeling of, "Oh, maybe they don't need me as much"? I'm just curious as
First,
sort of that rebound kind of
yeah,
as you're getting into something new,
yeah,
right?
exactly. At first, when that first started to happen, my first inner talk, inner critic talk, was, uh-oh, maybe because they said no, they're upset with me.
Mhm.
Because the words might be, oh, it's okay, don't worry about it, I figured it out. So,
Mhm.
and especially when you're reading it off a text, which very
Mm.
often that happens now,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? So wherever your inner level of inner critic is, will put energy on something that was relayed to you. So at first, I can remember thinking, uh-oh, did I upset somebody? So then I call them
Mhm.
just to double
Mm.
check. I can't do it today, but I can do it whatever day. No, it's all right, don't worry about it, I actually figured it out. And once I heard their voice, it was like, okay, they figured it out.
Mhm.
But I did go through that. I did go through, uh-oh, have I upset them? Or
Mhm.
it that was the biggest thing. I was
Mhm.
afraid. I was afraid of upsetting somebody. I was
Mhm.
afraid of them being disappointed in me.
Mhm.
Okay. That was the biggest thing that came up, that if I say no, somebody is going to be disappointed in me.
Mhm.
And that plays right into the inner critic and all of the
Oh.
negative self-talk. So when
Mhm.
I would get those texts back or messenger messages back, which is okay, fine, don't worry, I've figured it out, the inner critic would jump in. Uh-oh, they're
Mhm.
disappointed in me. Uh-oh,
Mhm.
maybe I should have said yes.
Yeah.
So then I'd call just to check.
Mhm.
And very often it was, they'd figured it out,
Yeah.
and the more I did it, the more comfortable I became. And I don't remember how long that took,
Mhm.
but I did, and I am very comfortable now in saying, can I get back to you on that? because it gives me space to breathe. It gives me space to look. It gives me space to give somebody my attention, rather than when I'm going, I can't stay because I promised somebody else I'd be over here. So you never give somebody your full attention, because you're constantly figuring out where else you have to be.
Yeah. Yeah, and so that's good for anybody who's listening to know that if they're just setting out on their very first steps on setting boundaries, those feelings are quite likely going to come up,
Yeah.
especially if you've been a people pleaser the whole time and setting boundaries are new. And it could be your partner standing right in front of you that's pushing back.
Oh yeah.
Or it could be, "Ooh, I just said no and now I feel guilty and now I'm going to try and do something even more to make up for it." Right? So if you feel that way, don't do that. Don't try not to try and do that. But know that those feelings are normal
Yeah.
as you're transitioning into becoming a stronger and stronger person who sets boundaries, right?
Yeah. And I think what's key is that we are not necessarily taught how to have a full conversation
Hmm.
and communication. And everything's in the words that we use. The power is in the words.
Hmm.
So if you're somebody that has let's use the dishes as an example that we started with. So when somebody comes in through the door, and I've done this myself, so there's a zero judgment, zero.
Hmm.
You come in through the door and the dishes in the sink, and you go, oh, I thought I asked you to do the dishes. What's wrong with you? Why can't you just get it done? Right? As opposed to coming in and having a different kind of conversation is, what happened today that you didn't manage to get that done?
Hmm.
Was there something that came up for you that couldn't get done? And can you get it done now, please?
Hmm.
There's a different tone, and it's being aware of your vocabulary, being aware of how you speak to yourself first of
Hmm.
all, and how you speak to other people. But I know sometimes in the moment that's very difficult, and I've been short, and
Hmm.
particularly with teenage kids when they were growing up.
Doing that right now. I'm trying not to be, but when you ask your child 1,000 times to clean their room, right? And I was I was guilty of this today. I'd asked my daughter to clean her room before she went to her dad's, asked and asked and asked, please clean your room, please clean your room. And she had done sort of it. And I should just be able to shut the door and leave it. But this time I was like, no. And I went in and I did sort out a few things because I was looking for laundry. But I was like, "Nope. Normally, I can shut the door, but for today, for some reason, it was just a little too much." But it's true when we're especially when it comes to kids, because 'cause they're gonna push back and they're used to you doing things a certain way. Mom will do it. Mom always does it. Mom will do it. Mom will do it." And when you stop doing it, you have to be consistent in stopping to do it, or else all of us the kids won't get it. They
Yeah.
really, really won't get it.
Yeah. And I found for me, I mean, when I raised my children are all in their 40s or coming up to their 40s now. So I didn't know what I know now when they were
Mhm,
growing up. But I have my granddaughter living with me right now. So
mhm,
I can share with her in a very, very different way than I did
mhm,
as a mom of three children that was running her own business and frustrated and not knowing what I know now.
mhm,
I very often thought, I wish I knew what I know now back then, and maybe it would
mhm,
be different. But everything in divine timing. But for my granddaughter that's living with us right now, it would be my conversation with her, particularly for a bedroom, because where she was, it was a disaster. So
mhm,
the conversation started. Do you know how to clean your bedroom?
mhm,
Well, yeah, well, it was a dumb question, right? No, do you know how to clean your bedroom? Do you know how I like things cleaned, so that I know that you've cleaned in a certain way and you've brought all of your dirty laundry out, and there's no mice, there's no ants, there's no, when you live out in the
mhm.
country, you've got all of
Yeah.
that kind of thing. So do you need to ask me any questions on how I like things done, so that we can, we're not butting heads all the time?
Mhm.
That was the best conversation I had. Well, this, I don't like doing that, and I don't like doing this. Well, that's okay. So if you don't like doing it, would you rather butt heads with me, or would you rather get it done?
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, there's certain conversations that you can have, but certainly me expressing to her,
Mm-hmm.
and she's older than your
Mm-hmm.
daughter, you know, she's
Mm-hmm.
older than your daughter, but even so, it's, you know, do you know how I like things? Do you know why I like things done a certain way? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And the conversation started, no, I don't. Well, when you have a clean room, you have a clean, your mind's tidy. When your
Mm-hmm.
room is completely and utterly cluttered, if you have things going on and you're going to school and trying to figure stuff out, it makes it harder to do in a room that's completely and utterly cluttered.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things that we did was, one weekend, a room was a complete and utter disaster. The following weekend, we cleaned it out, and I asked her to notice how she felt.
Mm-hmm.
How do you notice how you feel? Is your mind clearer when you go in here? This is why. It's not because I'm being a pain in the ass grandparent. There's a reason why you need a clean, tidy space, because it gives you an opportunity to be able to process your own thoughts and emotions.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Uh,
I'm going to use that one. Thank you. I like that one. That's
Yeah,
good. But it's true. Like I find even for myself, I like a tidy room. I might have a small little pile of something, like usually I
yeah,
have the clothes just, but I like my dressers tidy. I like things in their place.
yeah.
And it gives you a sense of order. And there are some days I will spend a half hour to an hour just to clean my office, give it a good wipe down before I sit down to work, because it does give you a sense of, oh, okay, now I know where everything is and it's not all cluttered. And it really does change the energy. I like that. It's
I can just hear somebody now watching this saying, but I like my desk a complete and utter disaster because it's organized chaos.
good. And there's that too. I know I have organized chaos like over to the left right now. I
Yeah,
could tell you. But I used to think about organized chaos. And when I was writing my thesis for university and writing, I written a few papers. It was like stacks of index cards everywhere on my dining room table, and it looked complete and utterly a mess. But I was like, "Don't touch it. It is
yeah, because
organized chaos."
yeah,
But for me, it made sense, right? And so if that's what works for you, that's what works for you, right? It's really a process of understanding who you are and what's important to you and what you need to lift your energy. So if that makes you feel fine and that works for you, okay.
just close the door on
But
it.
yeah, just close the door on it. Exactly. But the big thing about setting boundaries in any area of your life is really understanding what builds your energy up and what depletes it. And if it's being depleted, where might you set some boundaries if you're able? And if you're not able, how can you allow yourself some time to build up that energy tank for yourself?
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. And you know, before we close, Margaret, that's one thing that I would say to people. For the rest of the week, notice what you notice about your energy.
Hmm.
No idea what's going on outside my door. Tape being pulled. Notice what you notice about your energy. When you come home at night, notice, if you use that barometer of 10 to 0,
Hmm.
where is your energy? And then
Hmm.
ask yourself, was there somewhere today that I allowed my energy to be depleted, where it's an appropriate place for me to create a boundary?
Hmm. And then give it a try, right? And it may take a few tries for you to really feel comfortable, and for those people around you, it may take 100 tries.
Yeah,
And understand that that boundary may change, like we've talked about before, and that there may be some slip ups on your part, that once you set the boundary you give in again. That's okay. Just keep trying. Don't beat yourself up over it because you didn't keep your boundary. Just be aware of it
yeah,
and keep going.
yeah.
Keep going. It's a growth process, setting boundaries,
It
especially if you've never done it before.
absolutely is. I
Hmm.
don't have the same boundaries now that I had when I was 30 years old. Like
No,
that,
me neither.
I don't. I might not even have the same boundaries I had 6 months ago, you know, because you're evolving and growing all the time. Boundaries
Hmm.
are movable, they're changeable, they're flexible, and there are non-negotiable boundaries.
Hmm.
Usually those non-negotiables are the foundation.
Yes.
Um, but yeah, play with the boundaries and see where you can
Hmm.
reclaim your energy and where you start to feel like your tank is being filled up.
Yeah. And if some people are curious as to, well, how do I know what's important to me and how do I know where it is? Have a look at your values, right? What's important to you? What do you like? People who are honest and respectful and truthful and organized and respect time and on time. Like, what sort of things and characteristics are important to you? Because that may be an indicator too as to where for you yourself, it's like, I don't like being talked to that way,
Yeah.
out of respect. Or, please be on time when we set a time to meet. That could be really important at the office for meetings or for family members. So even if you're thinking about, not only the energy, which is really important, but also if you're questioning where to set boundaries, think about what's important to you
Yeah.
that you would really like to, have happen that would help keep your energy going too.
Yeah, that's really powerful, Margaret. Thank you.
Mm,
Well, we're going to bring this to a close once more, and please share these videos.
mhm,
There is going to be somebody out there, a friend of yours, you post it on your Facebook page, you share it from all of the platforms that these videos are posted. Margaret has them posted on her platforms. I have them posted on mine, and please share them, because this is something that's critically needed right now. And the subjects that Margaret and I are going to continue having conversations about are they're important. They're important to every
mhm.
single one of us. And there just may be somebody in your life that needs to hear that on that particular day. So thank you for supporting both Margaret and I for sharing these videos. And should you ever need anything, coaching from either one of us, then reach out. We're available on most platforms that you can reach us. But know that you are the only one that can create this space for you. You're the only one really that can decide what's a safe boundary for you. And the rest is going to be supported from people around you that care about you. So Margaret, I want to thank you and again for being here. Before we finally close, is there any last thing you would like to say to anybody?
Um, I guess when it comes to boundaries, just give it a try and you will be happily surprised at how well it actually impacts you and builds up your energy.
Well, thanks everybody. Have an amazing day, and throughout the week, check and see what your energy tank's like, and see if you can implement some of the things that we talked about today. Bye for now.
Bye.